Please welcome Richard Dean Anderson.
Richard Dean Anderson just broke his silence about why he really left Hollywood, and what he revealed will shock you. In May 2025, at a fan convention in London, the MacGyver legend said something no one expected. Hollywood is a soul-killing machine, but that wasn't the most stunning part. Between 2023 and 2025, Anderson turned down over $23 million in offers. Netflix offered him $15 million for a documentary about his life. He said no. Disney wanted to pay him $5 million for just 5 Stargate episodes. He didn't even respond, but here's the dark secret he's been hiding. When Anderson tried to quit MacGyver to save his health after collapsing on set, the studio threatened him with an $18 million lawsuit. He was literally trapped in a contract that was killing him. Anderson just revealed how that moment changed everything, the real story behind his breakdown, the impossible choice between his health and financial destruction, and why he finally realized that staying in Hollywood meant losing everything that actually mattered. This isn't just another celebrity retirement story. This is about what happens when success becomes a prison and the only escape is walking away from everything.
Well, MacGyver was more difficult physically. I had more fun doing Stargate than I did doing, not that MacGyver wasn't fun, but it certainly was arduous.
To understand why Anderson's recent confession matters so much, you have to understand just how successful he was when he walked away. MacGyver ran from 1985 to 1992, spanning 139 episodes that turned Anderson into a household name. By 1990, he was earning $1 million per season, plus producer credits that meant syndication money for life. The show was so successful that MacGyver became a verb. You didn't fix something, you MacGyvered it. Then came Stargate SG-1 in 1997, where Anderson negotiated something unprecedented in Hollywood, a 3-day work week. He earned $200,000 per episode while only working Friday through Sunday. That deal lasted all 10 seasons and made him a legend among actors trying to balance career and personal life. But there's something about Anderson's childhood that explains both his success and his eventual escape from Hollywood. Growing up in Minnesota, his world was filled with music, art, and stage lights. His father taught English and drama by day, but played jazz bass at night. His mother was a gifted artist who painted and sculpted. As a little boy, he'd sit quietly in the back of high school theaters while his dad rehearsed plays. Once he saw actors using Twinkies as birthday cake during a rehearsal, and it stuck with him, he decided that any job that came with free Twinkies was worth chasing. That innocent joy for performance would later become something much darker when Hollywood's contracts turned dreams into obligations. The first crack in Anderson's facade happened in 1991 during the final season of MacGyver. He collapsed on set, not from a stunt gone wrong or an accident, from complete physical and mental exhaustion. When doctors examined him, they found his body was functioning at just 20% capacity. He was dehydrated, malnourished, and running on nothing but stress and adrenaline. He had been pushing himself so hard for so long that his body simply gave up. Anderson asked the studio to let him leave the show. He told them he couldn't continue without seriously damaging his health. The studio's response? If he quit, they would sue him for $18 million in damages. That number wasn't a negotiating tactic. It was a trap. Anderson was contractually obligated to finish the series, regardless of what it was doing to his body. He was forced to keep filming while his health deteriorated, swallowing painkillers and hiding his condition from fans and media, but the physical breakdown had started years earlier. In 1987, while filming a running scene, Anderson stepped into a hidden hole and exploded a disc in his back. The pain shot down his leg and never fully went away. For a year and a half, he filmed episodes in agony, refusing stunt doubles and refusing to show weakness. This was a far cry from the fearless kid who once decided to bike 100 miles from Minneapolis to Duluth when he was just 10 years old. He didn't tell his parents the full plan. He just got on his bike and went. He made it halfway before his small body gave up. But even at 10, he had the guts to try something most adults wouldn't dare. That same fearless spirit that made him special as a child was being systematically destroyed by an industry that saw courage as something to exploit rather than celebrate. When Anderson agreed to star in Stargate SG-1 in 1997, everyone thought his famous 3-day work week was about luxury. The truth was much darker. It was a survival strategy. By 2001, despite working only 3 days a week, Anderson was falling apart again. He was seeing a therapist twice weekly. He couldn't sleep without pills. He was drinking 8 to 10 cups of coffee every day just to stay functional during filming. The breaking point came during a live interview, when Anderson literally fell asleep on camera. The exhaustion had become so severe that he couldn't stay awake during basic promotional duties. Here's where Anderson's childhood becomes tragically relevant. As a teenager, he had an appetite for danger that seemed limitless. At 17, he took off on a cross-country bicycle ride, traveling over 5,600 miles from Minnesota through Canada, all the way to Alaska. He did the final 33 days completely alone, no car following him, no team, just him, a bike, and brutal mountains and weather. Earlier that year, he'd been caught in a terrifying snowstorm in Taos, New Mexico, where 105 mph winds stranded him in whiteout conditions. He survived and kept pushing for more. He learned to scuba dive, bought 4 motorcycles, including a Harley-Davidson, and would jump school roofs for fun. Once, during one of Minnesota's bitter winters, he decided he wanted to set a world record by living in an igloo. He built it himself and stayed for 3 days, nearly freezing to death. But to him, that was just another challenge. The kid who could survive alone in Alaska for 33 days was now being broken by Hollywood meeting schedules. The industry had found a way to defeat someone who seemed undefeatable. The career pressures were only part of Anderson's story. The real cost was what fame did to his ability to form genuine human connections. In 1995, Anderson dated actress Lara Flynn Boyle, who was 25 to his 45. The 21-year age difference became tabloid obsession. Photographers followed them everywhere. Anderson later said, "The media attention felt soul-crushing." The relationship ended quickly, but the damage was done. Terry Hatcher, who dated Anderson from 1991 to 1993, later told friends that he was never home. The MacGyver filming schedule meant 15-hour days, leaving only weekends for personal life. She said dating him was like being in a relationship with a ghost who occasionally showed up for dinner. But this isolation was particularly tragic for someone with Anderson's background. Growing up, his family didn't have much money. His father's teacher paycheck barely covered the basics, and sometimes the music gigs helped, sometimes they didn't. The 4 boys had to pitch in. Anderson delivered newspapers and learned what it meant to value every dollar. Yet that same family was rich in connection. The walls of their home echoed with jazz music and smelled of paint from his mother's art. It was a house full of creativity, warmth, and presence. Hollywood had taken someone who grew up understanding the value of family presence and turned him into someone whose career made presence impossible. The industry that made him famous was systematically destroying his ability to be loved for who he actually was, rather than what character he played on television. Anderson started retreating from public life in 1997, moving to Vancouver for 8 months each year. He wasn't just seeking privacy, he was trying to remember what normal human connection felt like. Everything changed for Anderson on August 2, 1998, when his daughter Wiley was born. But the birth was terrifying. She didn't breathe when she came out. She didn't cry. Doctors rushed to save her while Anderson stood frozen, trying to stay strong. When they finally said she was okay, he broke down completely. He later called it the most overwhelming moment of his life. During Wiley's first year, Anderson cried almost every single day. This wasn't postpartum depression. This was a 48-year-old man finally understanding what actually mattered. The transformation was complete when he became a full-time single father in 2003. The man who had once been trapped by $18 million contracts now said that waking up at 3 a.m. to check on his daughter was never a burden. There's something beautiful about this return to his roots. Remember, this was the kid who grew up watching his dad rehearse plays, sitting quietly in theater seats, absorbing the magic of performance. But that childhood magic was about family, creativity, and joy, not contracts, lawsuits, and exploitation. Anderson realized he didn't want to repeat the mistakes that had nearly destroyed him. Terry Hatcher had complained he was never home. He didn't want his daughter to say the same thing. By 2017, when he was 67, he was still driving Wiley to school every morning and picking her up every afternoon. The workaholic who collapsed from exhaustion found peace in the simple routine of fatherhood. He had remembered what the kid with the Twinkie dreams really wanted. Not fame, but connection. Not success, but presence. Between 2023 and 2025, Anderson turned down offers worth more than $23 million. But these weren't just any offers. They were specifically designed to appeal to his legacy and his financial needs. Netflix offered him $15 million for a documentary about his life and career. Anderson said no because he didn't want his life turned into content. Disney approached him with $5 million for just 5 episodes of new Stargate content. Anderson didn't even respond to the offer. Paramount offered $3 million for a single MacGyver reboot episode, a cameo that would have taken maybe a week of work. Again, no response. Each rejection was a statement about what he valued. The $15 million documentary would have required him to relive and analyze decades of experiences he was trying to move past. The Stargate episodes would have pulled him back into the system he had worked so hard to escape. But here's what makes these rejections even more powerful. This is someone who understands the value of money from childhood. The kid who delivered newspapers and watched his family stretch every dollar was now turning down generational wealth. He wasn't being reckless, he was being protective. Protective of something more valuable than money, his peace of mind and his relationship with his daughter. The industry was offering him millions to resurrect characters that had defined his career. But Anderson had moved beyond caring about his career. He had learned the difference between being successful and being fulfilled. At the London convention in May 2025, Anderson finally said what he had been thinking for decades about the entertainment industry, but this time he used different words to describe what he'd experienced. Fans were stunned. Anderson had always been polite and diplomatic in public appearances, but this time he didn't hold back. He told the truth about an industry that had made him wealthy while nearly destroying his humanity. The revelation wasn't just about his personal experience. It was about the systematic way Hollywood treats people as disposable resources. Anderson's $18 million lawsuit threat in 1991 wasn't unique, it was standard practice. The 3-day workweek that made Anderson famous was actually the minimum accommodation needed to prevent another breakdown. Anderson's story comes full circle when you remember that little boy sitting in theater seats, watching his father's rehearsals, dreaming of a job that came with free Twinkies. That child's joy for performance was pure and innocent. Hollywood had taken that joy and turned it into a weapon against him. Today, at 75, Anderson lives quietly in Malibu with an estimated net worth of $30 million. But his focus isn't on luxury, it's on purpose. He works with environmental groups, serves on the advisory board of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, and attends only 3 fan events per year. He didn't retire to escape. He retired to be present. He chose silence over noise, real life over performance, and above all, he chose to be a father over being famous. Richard Dean Anderson's story isn't about leaving Hollywood. It's about surviving Hollywood and choosing to live for something more meaningful than applause. The real reason he left wasn't about money or age. It was about recognizing that the entertainment industry operates like a furnace that burns people into ash while selling the smoke as glamour. The kid who once built an igloo and nearly froze to death for the challenge had finally found a different kind of courage, the courage to walk away from everything that looked like success but felt like death. And once you see that clearly, walking away becomes the only sane choice.